So, what you're hearing is music from the music app inside of Zoom. However,
Huh.
I usually play, and I'll turn this down, I usually have a Spotify list. And
Mm.
yesterday, my Spotify account got hacked. So, when I got in this morning, I was like, oh no, I can't get into my account. So, I just used the music app. So, there is an app. If you go to the bottom of your screens, there's a little app button. Do you
Yes.
see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And from there, you can go and search for music if you don't already have it and download the
Oh.
app. And then that music you can play. You don't have to pay for it like with Spotify. And
Oh.
and a quick tip, if you're using like Pandora, Spotify, or any of those
Mhm.
streaming software, if you record this and put it on YouTube, YouTube will say that that's IP, and they won't even show the video.
Oh,
So
that is
use the
so
music.
interesting.
Yeah, so use the music in Zoom. Yeah, I haven't tested to see if YouTube would, take you
Yeah.
down, but I'm guessing this is royalty-free music, and that's why we get to play it.
Oh, wow. This is really great. Thank you for sharing that.
So these are the kind of tips and tricks that we get here, right?
Yeah,
Good,
absolutely.
good. Well, it sounded like Haiti couldn't make it today, and
Okay.
yesterday Christy had a hard time getting in, so I don't know what's going on. She has the new link, so we'll see what happens, but we'll just go forward.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so here we go. We're going to get started now. Hello and welcome everyone to Appreciative Inquiry and Visuals Deliver and Destiny. This is the final phase of the 5D process. So let's talk about what we've done and where we are now. So hopefully before the session, everybody had a chance to fill out the handouts and do a little bit of the pre-work to get started. And that's really that define stage, is figuring out who you are, who your ideal clients are, and gathering what you really want to get out of these 4 sessions together. And then in the discover stage, our first live session, we did some drawing, some simple icons. We talked about appreciative inquiry and how those two pieces can come together. Then in the second session, the dream stage, we talked about templates and how harvesting information from folks can help us figure out what the client's desired outcome is so that we can go right into the design phase. And in the design phase, I showed some case studies, and we even did we just worked on some of your client-based projects or some of your personal projects. So that was great. And now we're at the deliver stage, oftentimes in appreciative inquiry, called destiny. And I'm going to talk today, we're going to spend a majority of the time talking about in person, virtual, analog, digital, because we can geek out on all of those tools. And I could talk about that, just the delivery stage, actually design and delivery, for probably about the rest of my life, honestly, because that's where a lot of the technical, no kidding, rubber hits the road. This just got real. We've got to be able to deliver it. And so I'll be referring sometimes, and you'll also see that Tech Host Academy logo, because I created an entire class. It was a year-long class to help people have more engaging, equitable, and efficient meetings. And so we're going to go, this is going to be like a choose your own adventure. I have lots to share. There's been past videos that I'll also share with you, but I really want to be able to answer your questions. And I had a few questions before this session that I'll make sure that gets in this video as well. So why are we here? Well, today's session is to consider the different ways to deliver your visuals or visual templates as part of your facilitative process. And we're going to do a little bit of a revisit from that dream phase. If you remember, I talked about the building resilience and how it can sit before design and after design. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and that nurturing of our resilience. Then we're going to talk about going big and going digital, what that looks like. And then just follow up on those next steps. We'll go through our handouts and make sure that if you have any questions about the checklists that I have and how you can add to these checklists as you prepare. And then any final Q&A. And then for the wrap up, I like to do an exercise called Learn, Do, Thank. So we'll finish that way. So hopefully by now, or at least by the end of this session, you will have many options to deliver your visual templates. So let's review a little bit about our appreciative agreements. And remember, we went into this and everybody was really great. We didn't have any real hard ground rules. I added that turn off notifications, but for the most part, everyone was having really great appreciative feeling agreements. And just take a moment and look at these and say, did we do it? Did we experiment? Did we commit to creating a safer or maybe braver space for one another? Were we present and curious? And if we haven't celebrated yet, let's celebrate now. So, yeah, yay. So it's always a good thing to come back to the appreciative agreements. Maybe not at the end, but if this is a long series of sessions that you might be putting on, maybe popping those up and saying, is there anything you want to add? And so I love the appreciative agreements as a way to what's come up since the last time we've met, and do we need to add to these? So is there anything you would add, or are we good?
Um, I feel that I am so full already with disagreements that
Yeah,
it's been so much fun. So
good. Hey, good.
yeah,
And you
fun,
know,
maybe fun. We can add
yeah,
fun.
yeah, have fun. I know I started a new job recently and one of the things that I said, and I said, I didn't see this on the job description, but I want to make sure that we're having fun. And she was like, okay, we'll add that. So there we go. We're having fun. And that's what's great about the appreciative agreements is that we can change them. We can change our agreement at any time, right? So I love that. And yes, if you're already full already, I totally understand. Just one more day of all of this, but you'll always have access to these videos so you can come back and look at those at any time. So hopefully you feel like you've got that as a resource. So we'll keep moving on. Uh, Further review, high bar, low bar. Now, not everybody who wrote these are here, but we can go through them. And I like to start with that low bar. This is sort of that status quo. Let's just meet the minimum requirement. Hopefully, if you've taken this course, you've gotten ideas for a plan for working with new groups. Maybe take away a few tools to use in making meetings visual. You know, we talked about icons, templates. Now we're going to get into actual tools that we use. And maybe, hopefully, someone learned something they didn't know before, right? And then the high bar is like this would meet or exceed my expectations, learn how to play and be more organic with my work and how I present and connect it to others. I love that because it really aligns with the poetic principle. And then a plan for working with new groups. Hopefully that happened. And get a mini refresher course for my AI facilitator training and be inspired to re engage in AI with visuals. And I can't remember who said that, but hopefully that's happening. And anyone who has AI for facilitator training and maybe not has used it, using visuals hopefully can be a refresher for that. Great. So does it feel like we've lived into our destiny and have we met our learning expectations? All right, I'm getting some nods. That's great. So, Shoana, you asked me early in the beginning, and I think it was around this time that we were doing this. How do I know if I'm connecting with the people online? Was that your question? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but it could have
Yeah.
been.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I remember answering it, and then I've been really thinking about it for the last couple of days. And I thought, oh my gosh, how do I really answer that? One of the things that I do as a tech host, someone who supports facilitators who are online, is that I'm really there to shine the light on them and make them look good. But I also tell them to treat this like it's a cooking show, be prepared and kind of assume that people know like they're receiving what you're giving them and keep moving. You don't have to get validation and confirmation all the time. And then I thought, but a lot of people need that. Like I was in a call yesterday right after our call, and it was a networking group, and people were so excited that everyone had their cameras on. And they talked about meetings where no one has their camera on. And sometimes you look at a sea of faces and it's really quiet and still, and everyone's got their thinking resting face on, right? Like they're thinking. So, how do you know? So, there's a part of you that has to anticipate that there's going to be people who are going to get it, and then there's going to be people who don't. So, building in time to say, does anyone have any questions? And then waiting. And that's the hardest part for people who don't like silence. So I may have demonstrated this before, but I'll ask a question, I'll put myself on mute, and then I'll take 2 sips. Now, I mute myself so you don't have to hear me gulping, but the part of that is it's totally silent. And when there's a visual like someone drinking water, people feel like they have time to either type in the chat or unmute so that they can say something. Because some people are kind of afraid or they're still forming their question. So giving them that time is really important. And for those in the room who are they don't like silence, especially the extroverts, they'll just talk. They'll just ask a question. So when I don't know, that's what I do. When I do know, how am I validated with that? And I love to go back to the appreciative inquiry principles, the constructionist principle. We live in the world with the questions that we ask. We're constructing this excitement. And so when you and others in the group are interacting with me, then I know you're getting it. And when we get to that poetic principle, we're really exploring the things that we're interested in. It's almost like a dance. It's like, okay, now this is where the real learning and connections start to happen because it's not just me pushing information to you. So I don't know if that helps, but I wanted to get that on the recording and to remind people to go back to those appreciative inquiry principles because those can help validate us as we're teaching. Are people really getting it? And I think, and we talked about it being a bit of a fire hose, but then it also being okay that it's a fire hose. So, any questions or anything you want to ask or add based on what I just shared?
Yeah, no, I think that it's a really important reminder to be like, we just might be a little bit uncomfortable,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And that people not having their cameras on or something doesn't mean that there is not engagement happening or that people are not like connected. It's like,
Right,
we don't know why people don't have their cameras on, right? So
right, right.
um yeah, so really like being empathetic and even compassionate with oneself around like, we're just going to trust the process.
Hmm. Yeah, we're going to trust it. And we're going to trust that our design, that we really truly did design for the margins so that everybody is getting their needs met. Yeah. And about that, building in silent time. So we did the um, building resilience, and I had you relax and listen to me ask the questions. And then I built in time for you to actually free write, right? So you wrote for 5 minutes and then distilled that down for a couple of minutes. And those kinds of things can be really helpful too. Oftentimes, when we're having a conversation, the extroverts will go first, or the loudest voices in the room will go first. And we've got to make some time for some of the introverts to listen and then give a pause and really give them some more time to be able to contribute as well. And what I find is that this exercise can easily be done in any instance where you say, I'm going to ask a question, but before I want anyone to answer, we're going to take a few minutes and just free write. And it's called a 3-2-1. If you took 3 minutes to write, 2 minutes to edit and distill down what you're going to share, and then 1 minute to share. And I didn't really do it for this one, but because I wanted us to have more open time to discuss. But a 3-2-1 is a very efficient way to make sure that the extroverts aren't leading the conversation, that everyone has a time to harvest the information. And then you limit the time at the very end because 1 minute is actually quite a bit of time. And sometimes if you're really, really short of time, you can put on the timer and, hold them to it. Or sometimes I say, give your answer in one breath. If you feel like you're running out of breath and then all of a sudden you're saying a bunch of stuff and I'm out of breath. It really shortens the time. So that's just a couple of tricks that I use for to give space to people and then also to have them share. So going back to the building resilience, some of the things, and I loved this. I love every single time I do this because it has a different outcome. And so you gave very different answers to this particular these questions, and ultimately, I designed it so that I would really understand what are the needs of the participants in terms of that second one, love. What do you need in order to feel your learning process is supported and cared for? And so for me, I put that in there in the dream phase so we could have the design phase so we could come back to this and say, okay, where in yesterday's design session, where people validated with their ideas and was their learning process enriched by how we did that. I think we definitely celebrated with you because we were like, look, we took your logo and turned it into a visual. It was like, what does it look like? Now it's got a structure and it's just one simple line, right? Um, how prepared were we? I was very satisfied with how prepared everybody was to bring an example. And then common ground, maybe common ground, but also parallel processing. I heard how you both learned from one another. And hopefully we gave time to answer a lot of questions, but we did spend a great deal of time of customizing those. And so again, I put that in there because I wanted us to I wanted to be able to gather some of that from you as participants, and then to be able to come back now in the delivery phase to again ask, are we living into our destiny? Yeah. Any reflections or anything you'd want to say about this particular exercise or where this fits in the 5D process?
Well, I really love, and I think I mentioned this before, that I really love that you were very much like, this is your time to be on the dance floor. And as somebody who facilitates and coaches, like, I'm like usually thinking about like the others. So like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like the given permission
Hmm.
to do that. And I really also love how you are blending the, like, this is how you show up as a facilitator, but also like this is how you resource yourself. And those like
Yeah.
you talked about like the facilitator training and the resilience training, and like you're doing such a beautiful job like blending them in
Oh,
and
aw.
showing how they can like how they're part of the like design, the meeting design
Yeah.
process. I'm just again like
Yeah.
so full like extra, like I am like
Yay. Well, let's celebrate. And thank you for
yeah.
saying that because I really do feel like it's my life's work.
Mhm,
This isn't my body of work. Appreciative Inquiry,
mhm.
belong to David Cooper Ryder and the folks at the Center for Appreciative Inquiry have created ways for us to be able to learn this, but I have made this my little piece of the pie, right? So one of the things that Joan and Jeannie really expressed to us was find your niche. And they also said, stay in your lane. Like, I'm not a psychologist. And
Mhm.
even though I am a coach, it's not a big part of my practice. So I've done this particular exercise one on one with, or one to one with folks, which has been great. But what I really love is having a large group. And I've had up to 40 people in a group where we're doing this. And the parallel processing is powerful. I've done it in person, I've done it online. And for me, it's about, wow, we don't always take this time to think about these things. And this is one of those things that it's very simple, but it's very deep and can be very impactful. And I've made it a part of my practice. I mean, not only do I get to benefit by facilitating it a lot, but the question in Inquire, when you think of your needs, notice what's coming up for you. What questions can you ask to get the clarity you need? That is a question that I end up asking myself every day. When something goes wrong and I'm like, oh no, I'm stuck, or something didn't go the way I liked, or I'm noticing my emotions are not balanced right now, I'm angry or I'm fired up about something, I'll say, whoa, 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 what's going on? What do I need? So just this practice has helped me become more self aware. So, what do I need? And then once I say, oh, here's what I need to blow off steam. I need to go outside and walk around the block. I need to call someone. I need to email, I need to straighten this out, whatever is going on. It really quickly helps me get through this process. And that's what helps me build resilience, right? Because resilience is, I mean, I think we've always needed it as humans, whether we were hunting and gathering or we were trying to build something by hand, or now here we are inundated by so much information and technology. We need resilience. And I think the way we get to that is to really truly having that self-awareness and asking ourselves, what do I need in this moment? And then that very next question is, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. How am I going to get through it? And we've already identified in the first two questions, appreciate and love, I'm strong. I can do this. And then that next piece about evolve is really about expanding. And when I think about the word love, I can't even remember the context in which we talked about this. But when I think about the word love, my heart expands and I evolve, right? So for me, this is thank you for saying you said such beautiful words. I feel like can I take those out and make them into a testimonial because that was beautiful. And what in reality, it's just a very strong tool. And I didn't invent it. I just said, wow, when we make this a needs assessment, then we can apply this to ourselves, but even to the bigger picture when working with groups and within the 5D process. So when I shared that with Jeannie and Joan, I don't think they anticipated it was, they were like, you can use it anywhere. Sure. But those two places really help validate, the design and are we meeting the need of the group. And we also know that by the time we get to actually delivering it, it's all evolved again, right? So hopefully people keep going.
I
So
have a
that's,
question. Do you
yeah.
usually to use this like at the beginning of a session to like set the tone and then you check in back at the end, or when do you use this usually?
Yeah, excellent. So, me personally, I use it for coaching and also group coaching. I love it. In
Mm-hmm.
terms of with a group to figure out have their needs been met, I would first do a little bit of dreaming first, and then I would use this to determine their true needs. So we might start out with it would be nice if, what if it were nice
Mm-hmm.
if kind of thing. And actually, I mean, this can fit in a couple of places. If you wanted to make sure that you were designing for the needs, you would put it at the end of a dream session so that they leave feeling, wow, this is really good. That leaves on a really good emotional note. Um, and then you would do it maybe later you would do it, or you would just go back to your client and say, did we meet these things? Or maybe even before the delivery, after the design, have we used this as a checkbox? You can do it that way. But the way that I've actually used it with my clients is, do you remember when I talked about meetings all have this diverge and then the grown
Mm-hmm.
zone and then the converge? So in longer groups, like longer projects, when the group starts to fizzle out, right? So some people are moving
Mm-hmm.
really fast and some people aren't coming along. I see resistance as a lack of resilience because people are resisting something because they don't know how to get through a hard thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
whenever groups are needing a little bit of support, I'd bring this in. And it's especially great for counselors, people that help people, caregivers, people that really have that heart. If you have a group of people that are like, we have to get this done, we're on deadline, they don't want to stop and do something like this. They're like, not,
Mm-hmm.
that's like, read the room. They're not in the mood, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but in other cases where people truly need deeper support, that's when I bring this in.
So
Yeah.
then that would be the ground zone, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. It could be a
it's like
grown
when people
zone.
are stuck and it's like
Well, and then they can't make a decision, right? So the grown zone is like, this is where we say, okay, what's our criteria? Let's move
Mhm,
on. But if it's a long process, like it's not just happening in a
mhm,
meeting, I just wouldn't bring it up. But it's like,
mhm,
you know what? This group needs some
mhm,
support. Like there's a few people that are having health issues, or maybe they're taking care
mhm,
of people. There's other people that are just not they're not seeing the big picture. They're not seeing the vision. They're not
mm,
engaged anymore. They're
mhm,
disengaged. There could be all sorts of reasons to be like, are our needs being met? We're not meeting our what we said we were going to do. And you do this when it's like the individual needs aren't being met. Yeah. But that's what's great about this particular model is you can pop it in a lot of different places. But originally I would
mhm.
put it in the dream phase just to make sure
Okay.
people's needs are being met. And it can be, all these questions can be customized. I customize them for different groups. And I highly recommend Gene and I don't know that they police their, like if people are out there using it without permission. I mean, they wrote a book, they put it out there.
Mhm,
But once you're certified, they're like, here's how to deliver it. They show you how to
mhm,
deliver it. They talk about that. And then they have you deliver it back to them in a in
mhm,
your way. So we paired up in pairs, and another woman and I we didn't deliver it this way. We delivered it a completely different way, and that's what was so cool because we had like 7 or 8 different ways that this
mhm.
model could be delivered. Yeah, and this is the way that you experienced the way I did it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions because it is a very powerful tool. And so if you remember back in the very beginning, the very first class, I had visuals, and I don't have it right now. I should have put it in here, but I had visuals and I said, what image describes who you are at your best? And so what I like to do is right after this conversation, go back and say, okay, what happens when we're not at our best? And how might we nurture ourselves when we can't access our best self? Right. So this is an opportunity to have folks annotate. And again, this could come right after that first slide where it's like, okay, great, we're feeling great. And it can either come right after it or it could be at the end of a session where you say, how might I nurture myself when I can't access my best self? So let's type a few things in here. Take a moment to do that. Yeah, these are all great. We're definitely in line with each other, right? And it's really about self-care. And one of the terms that I've been using a lot lately is I practice radical self-care. That means if I have to, I cancel a meeting or I say I need 15 more minutes. My boss did that yesterday. She says, I'm going to need 15 more minutes. And I was like, whoa, this is with a client. And she came in and she goes, thank you everyone for giving me the 15 minutes. I really needed that. And it was like, I was so grateful that she modeled the way because how often do we truly do that? Yeah, that was very brave of her. I was like, that was great. So wonderful. And I think we can talk a lot about a lot of self-care things. Here's what we do to care for ourselves. But truly we can dive even deeper to these to this part. And I think this is a great question to ask ourselves, just like I said before, throughout the day. If I feel like I'm not in balance, can I just say, how might I nurture myself to access my best self? Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. Awesome. All right. So here we go. We've kind of gotten out of that. We're living into that destiny. But now we're getting ready to deliver. So this is a bit of a right turn, like a quick, I guess it's called a left turn, where it's like, okay, we're talking about all this wonderful feely stuff. Now we're like going to get down to business. And I'd love to find out from you, where do you normally work or feel really comfortable? Is it in analog, digital, in person, or virtual? What are you doing now that's like, this is where I feel the most comfortable?
I can do all of it.
You can do all of it. Okay, great. So
Yes.
then that's great. And so then the next question is where do you want to learn more? Where do you feel like in that, remember that learning curve? You're like, I know what
Mhm.
I don't know. Is there an area where you're like, I think I could learn more in this area?
I mean, I always want it all, so
All of it.
I like, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm probably more of a generalist.
Hmm.
So I like
Great.
to like know a little bit of everything. I think that I've been doing more things virtually.
Hmm.
So maybe that is more of an area of focus. You mentioned using iPads and things like that. So like I would be very interested in exploring that.
Okay.
I think we talked a lot about how to like make like flip charts and things like and drawing things
Uh-huh.
and physically. So I feel like I had some
Yeah.
really good ideas. I mean, and again, we can talk about everything, but
Yeah.
like using the iPad, for example, like it's something completely new that I have no idea about. So like that would
Okay.
be like
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I'll definitely. So I will talk about everything. And I also am
Mhm.
giving you permission to interrupt me at any time and say, wait, I have a question or whatever, because I can talk, like I said, I can talk about all of these things for way too long. And for some folks, I have literally worked with some groups where they're like, will not even touch digital. They won't. And so I'm helping them ease into it, even down to what's the camera you're using? And that's fine. I can answer all those questions. So then my next question is how do you feel before an online session? Are you
Uh,
scared? You're not fully confident or you're like, I'm good. And it's just that feeling right before.
I think I feel the same regardless of the type of session.
Uh-huh. Okay,
So I'm,
great.
I'm like really like nervous
Yeah.
before any
Yeah.
session,
Yeah.
but it's not because of it could be in person or it could be it's just
Yeah.
about the session, not about the
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. Okay. Super. And I just like to be able to just touch in with people because some people get really, really scared. And
Mhm.
what happens is when we're working with tech, if someone is having difficulty doing something, oftentimes if you're really watching them, you can see it on their face. Like especially if you run over to and or you I shouldn't say run, when you transition to a third party collaboration tool like Miro or Mural or something like that, a lot of people fall off. They get scared. And what I'll notice is that they will start typing like they're like you can tell they're in typing mode, right? And they'll type and I'll read their question and I'm like, wow, I just said that. They didn't hear me. Let me repeat the instructions. I'll repeat the instructions. And almost at the same time that they're done typing and they hit the return key, I'll watch them and they're like, oh, I actually figured it out. So what happens when our stress levels get really high around tech is we immediately either freeze or we push a whole bunch of buttons and cause total chaos, right? Or or we get lucky and it worked. But a lot of times people will use the chat and they'll ask questions, and then as soon as they hit send, they're relieved and now they can access the creative centers of their brain. And I ask people about how they feel about tech because the first thing I'm going to say is if you're a facilitator and you don't like tech, hire a tech host or get someone on your team to be that in that role to support you because it can really freeze up our flow and our ability to access the creative parts of our brain that help us facilitate and be creative. So I like to be able to talk about that because I think it's such an important thing. And I think we don't realize that it's actually our brain is shutting down parts of itself when we're in a stressful situation. And so I don't ever want someone to feel stressful about the tech part. So I always have a resolution for something. So good. All right. So one of the things that I have here right off the bat is that 5D process template. And these are text boxes. Oops. That of course I can't click. But when I give you the PowerPoint, you can actually use that and just type those in. And I've justified them so that they fill and maximize that strange space that's there. So you'll notice this is justified at the bottom, this is to the left, this is to the right. So it'll all kind of fill in as you're typing. And so this is one way where it's like, I don't have to draw or do anything. I can just type what people are saying. And you can share your screen if you want or not. So that's just one way to use that technology.
I do have
Yeah.
a question about that because I've been thinking a lot about how there's like so much like PowerPoint, right? Like, and
Yeah.
then you kind of lose connection. But like visuals make it like really like
Hmm.
interesting to learn. And so I'm wondering like, what is that balance between having a visual, but
Hmm.
for that visual to not feel like it's like a PowerPoint?
Right. And that's so right. Okay. So I'm so glad you asked that. And I'm going to grab another piece of technology here. I wasn't prepared for you to ask me that, but I love this question. So I'm so great with it. Okay. All right. So right now I am using a piece of software called Prezi Video. And when we are in PowerPoint like this, it kind of takes up your whole screen, right? But if I
Mhm,
stop sharing, you see me, and then I add a slide like this, it's like, oh my
mhm,
gosh, you see me and the slide. And
mhm,
I can go through and create, say, I'm showing a slide like this, and you say, oh, I can barely see the words there, or something that has a lot more words to it.
mhm,
I can then make it bigger,
mhm,
which is super cool, right? So that's great. So this is a app called Prezi Video. Now I've used this for probably about 2 years, and people love it because it's like, oh, I see her and she's interacting and the information's there. That's great. So there's a little bit of a balance there. So I think that that's one thing. What we've just learned in um, Zoom is this is a brand new feature of Zoom is they have something very similar. So if right now you go to share screen, and
mhm.
to the right of that, a white window pops up, and to the right of that, it has different types of layouts. And what I'm going to try to do here is show my PowerPoint as a layout. And so now I'm like
Mm,
down in the corner and it's right there. So I didn't have to build a whole nother, I didn't have to buy a whole nother app to do it. It's a little different. I haven't used it a
mm,
lot, so it's a little clunky, but you can see
mm,
that you can see both, right?
mhm.
So now
Yeah.
I can,
Where do you find this?
so under share, can you click the share button? It should let you do it. If
In
not,
the
I'll
share
switch.
screen. So
Uh-huh.
share screen. Okay, I'm in
To
share
the
screen.
right of that, does it
To the
say
right.
layouts
It does not say layouts, but um, it's like I have basic, advanced files and
and
app.
apps? Okay.
But
And
it's also not my meeting, so that might be something there.
It could. It could definitely be something there. And I'm going to put what I'm seeing in the chat, because if I were to share my screen, you probably wouldn't see it because it's a pop-up window.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
So
right.
to the right there, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's there you can decide, is the image behind you? Is it beside you? Are you just a small part? Is it next to you? So that's something to play with. And now you've still got people's attention. You're not like this little thing up in the corner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of controlling what they're seeing, because some people can, when they're doing like side by side gallery view or side by
Mhm.
side speaker view, they see the slide, and then they can move it to be bigger or smaller to see the
Mhm.
people. But not everybody's doing that, and
Mhm.
you, the facilitator or the tech host, have to instruct everybody, go to side by side gallery, move this all the
Mhm.
way over, see everybody in the room. And a lot of groups aren't doing things like that. They're just kind of
Yeah.
whoever shows up, and if they have their camera on, right? So yeah, so this is an already built-in way. Now, if you're not seeing that um, the next time you start your own Zoom meeting, you might just want to upgrade and make sure you have the latest version.
Yeah, yeah. I can find that now that I know what I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
exactly, exactly. But that's an excellent question. And that's just one of the things that we can do. Now, we also have been using the annotation tool a lot
Mm-hmm.
in the session. And someone was asking me to talk about the whiteboard and how to use that. So again, you would go to share screen and then click whiteboard, and then a whiteboard would show up. Now, this particular whiteboard is way more advanced than the ones that came out a few years ago, where it was literally a whiteboard and you just start drawing. This particular one, we could probably end up saving it and working asynchronously on it through Zoom. So again, with the whiteboard, I just went to that share screen whiteboard, and to the left, you can choose drawing tools, shapes, different types of lines, and start typing. And if you're going to, I mean, I just made slides and left a lot of room for us to annotate on and then took pictures of it. That's one way to do it. But if you're truly doing a whiteboard and you're just saying, throw a bunch of ideas up, you might want to type at the very top the title or the topic. So we can say, if you wanted to do appreciative agreements, we could do that. And but the thing is if you're the facilitator, you might tell people to do appreciative agreements, and then while they're typing, then you've got to go over here and make it bigger or whatever. And I don't use the whiteboard very often. It's so that even the toolbar looks different,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, oh, so which is I think is kind of funny that they would do that, that they would make it
Mm-hmm.
so different than the annotation tool. It's like, come on. It's like two totally different teams are doing that. So then here, if you wanted to, we could say, okay, we've got appreciative agreements in here. I'm going to actually, just going to see if I can
Yeah.
put in a
Yeah.
picture, but I can't.
Yeah. I cannot even see how I write here.
Is it not,
Like
it's not
I
giving
am,
you a,
it's
yeah.
not giving me it's not giving me anything like
Okay.
a toolbox or anything like that. Which I
Okay.
mean, it's fine. I mean,
It's not though. Allow
uh,
participants to share the whiteboard. I want to make sure that everyone, it looks like anybody can use it. I'm looking under more to make sure that everybody can annotate. Yeah, I'm looking under the tools, but it's not letting you do anything, huh?
I
Okay,
am
let
not
me,
seeing any tools at all. And I'm
okay,
trying to see if I can, you know how I'm trying to find the annotation tools, but I cannot, it doesn't let me.
okay.
It says you're
It's, yeah,
co-editing.
yeah,
So if I,
right.
yeah,
So what I'm seeing now is it's saying that it's showing you as a viewer
okay.
and a collaborator, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not letting me give you access to use that.
Mm,
So
interesting.
this is really great. So at Tech Coast Academy, this is the kind of thing that I just made a new one to
Oh,
see if you can do anything. Can you do
I
anything now?
saw it. I saw it pop up and then like it disappeared. Like, you're following. No, that's
Yeah, it
not.
just shows you as a viewer and it's not letting me change it. So at Tech Coast
Yeah.
Academy, this is the kind of thing that we would like try to figure out. We try to break
Mm-hmm.
it. We do all these different things. Yeah. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
close that because that was like
Mm-hmm.
no good. And whoever asked me the
Mm-hmm.
question about the whiteboard, it's like, ooh, we've got some work to do. So that's something that
Mm-hmm.
it's time for me to have another sandbox session where I
Mm-hmm.
invite people that have been in my classes to come
Mm-hmm.
and we figure these kinds of things out. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So, okay. And then there's third party collaboration tools. So we've got annotation in Zoom, and then we have third party collaboration tools. Have you ever used any of those? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
I know what they are, but I have never really used them. I just,
Yeah.
the most I done is like share like a presentation, like share screen. That's the
Right.
most I've done. So I
Right.
will be super excited to learn more.
So a few other ones that I like are Mural, Miro, and
Mm-hmm.
Padlet. And those are my three. And my Padlet is my go-to because I work with a lot of creative people and we put up instant galleries. Like within 90 seconds, we could have hundreds of pieces up because we're all taking pictures of our work and then putting them up there. And it's a very fast way to do that. I have videos
Mm-hmm.
about how to create Padlets and post 2 Padlets. So if you're interested in that, that's great. I also have a quick guide for Mural for those who want to use Mural. But also in the apps, if you go to apps and you go to the area where you can, says, let's see, add apps,
Mhm,
there's a little discover button or a search bar. And if you
mhm,
type in Mural, you can add Mural so that it's inside of Zoom. So people don't
mhm,
have to go outside of Zoom. Now, I don't do that because I don't fully trust that Zoom isn't mining data. And so
mhm,
I do it separately because when you download this, it'll ask you a bunch of questions. Are you okay with
mhm,
Zoom taking information of the people who are participating? And I'm like, I'm not cool with that. But that's
mhm,
just me. And I also have
mhm,
my own Mural account. But there's also Miro and all kinds of apps. If you go to those apps, and even if you type collaboration, there's, yeah, not just collaboration, but oh my gosh, there's, I'm gonna see if I can find another one. There was one in here
yeah.
that was great for icebreakers. And then when I type in
Mm.
icebreakers, it doesn't show up. But games, oh, there it is. If you type in
Oh.
games, there's one called Brightful Icebreaker Games. And so
Mm.
trivia, things like that. There's all kinds
Mm.
of apps in here to explore that you can get people engaged
Mhm.
in the meeting.
I have a question about this collaboration tools. I used Mural and Miro, and it used to be that you could use it without people needing an account, but
That's right.
now everybody needs an account for those two.
Really?
Um,
I used Mural just a week ago and we just were in there as visitors.
okay, so you don't need for Miro. I know for Miro you need it.
Okay.
For Mural, I thought you didn't, but for Mural, like you can only have 3 free boards. So I think that that is like the thing that is
Yeah.
like you need
Yeah.
to pay.
Yeah.
I never heard of Padlet. How is that?
Okay. I will bring one up so that you can see even what it looks like. Show you. And this is a web-based app. So I'm in my browser. These are
Mm-hmm.
all the Padlets I've created over the years. You can get 3 free Padlets, just like you were talking about Mural.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like, I'm going to see what this is. I don't think this is, I think this was just me testing something out. I'm going to show one that, I'm going to show a couple different ones. When I'm doing things for artists, sometimes we just throw whatever we're working up onto the board. So this is one big, huge gallery, and you can add comments, you can like things, you can choose one and make it bigger. And you can post things from your phone or from your computer. And so the next one I'm going to show you is one that I've been working on for people who teach cursive writing. So notice that these are in columns. And at the
Mm-hmm.
top, there's a topic for each one. And so you can scroll to this left and right if there's a lot of columns. And here, these are articles. So I can click on that and it'll go right to the news article. So it's a really great way to capture a lot of information. And this little search feature was never there before. So I have some Padlets that are, let's see, there's one for tech hosting that is just, I've got so many things in there that I probably need to go back and reorganize it. And I'm not seeing it now. Oh, here we go. This resources. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just one long line. So this was a very early Padlet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you'd have to read each one like it's a big long blog post or something, right? Yeah. And it doesn't look, yeah, I do have a search bar. So if I came in here and said something about, let's see, whiteboards. Yeah, that has nothing to do with a whiteboard. So we'll do Padlet. We'll see if there's anything in here. Yeah, giving and
Mm-hmm.
posting feedback on Padlet. So these are things about posting on Padlet. Um, we'll see if there's anything in here about Mural. Yep, there's my quick guide to
Mm-hmm.
Mural. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So it's what's great about it is that you send everybody a link and then you show them at the very lower right hand corner, you click the plus bar and here's your post, and then poof, it's up. So it's very fast and easy. There are Padlets that you can create that have that kind of play like mural and Miro. So
Mm-hmm.
in this case, people are putting things up, moving them around, showing connections. So
Mm-hmm.
this plays more like mural or Miro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love it. I just love sharing all these geeky tools.
Mm-hmm.
So good. All right. So let me look at where we are here. We've covered some of the technical stuff. And then when we get back, I'm going to talk about paper and how we go big on paper, either in the room or not. But I do want to talk about iPads. So do you have any kind of tablet now? Are you looking to buy or do you have one?
I have an iPad.
Okay, great. And so do you have a stylus?
I do. I have the Apple Pen.
Apple Pen. Okay, so you're working on an iPad. Okay. And do you have a grip?
No, I don't have anything added to it. It's just
Yeah.
what?
So I highly recommend a grip because this is so slippery
Mm,
that it's really hard to write with and control. And so my little grip is kind of shaped like I don't know if you can see this. It's kind of tear
mm-hmm,
shaped. So the top sticks up and there's a set of magnets on there that help it
mm-hmm,
stick to my iPad, which is
mm-hmm,
nice. So I don't lose it as often. Um, so there's that.
mm-hmm,
That's really helpful to be able to have that grip because this is so very slippery. And then on the cover, I have a matte cover on my iPad.
mm-hmm,
So I'm not writing directly on the glass. And there is a product called Paperlike, and I don't use it because it's really expensive. I just go to Amazon and I buy 2 matte covers for like $12. And I've had them.
mm-hmm,
I just put my second one on, I think 2 years ago. And the one I had on here before, it was on here for 4 years. So it's like they last a
mm-hmm,
long time. And having that grip and the matte cover makes it so it's more like a writing experience because
mm-hmm,
otherwise it's so slippery. You don't have a lot of control when you're writing or
mm-hmm.
drawing. Sort of like a whiteboard in that way. So I highly recommend those. And then there's a third product that I used to use, but I don't use anymore. And it's called a pin tip. And it's a little silicone piece that goes right over the top of your pen so that when you're writing, it slows it down so that you've got some traction. And those are really great. They also just came out with a brand new, you can take the tip of
Mm-hmm.
the tip off and put a pin tip on that's permanent. Not permanent, but
Mm-hmm.
you can
Mm-hmm.
replace it. But the other one just comes on and off like a little cap.
Mm-hmm.
So that too, for those who don't have a lot of experience working on iPads and tablets, those two can help slow down and make it more of a drawing process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a drawing app that you use?
I don't know anything about this, so that would take
Okay.
recommendations.
Yeah. So there's lots of different drawing apps and it just depends on who you ask. I use an app called Adobe Fresco because I am the type of person that likes a good workflow so that I can get it onto my computer easily and move things around. And do you know the difference between vector and raster based apps, drawing apps? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Vector is points and paths that create geometric or any shape that you can move around and you can make it big or small and it doesn't get fuzzy. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
raster is using little bitty pixels to decide if it's a color or a shape. And if you blow it up, it'll look fuzzy. And so
Mm-hmm.
I prefer vector. Most people use an app called Procreate, but that is purely raster based. And so you have to know how big your final product is going to be when you're done. Because I work
Mm-hmm.
vector, I can work on my iPad, get it
Mm-hmm.
on my computer, and blow it up the size of a billboard. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be a photograph. It's going to be drawings and things that I write. So it
Mm-hmm.
looks like that. And I use Fresco because before that, I used an app called Adobe Draw, and it had like 4 features.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so easy. And I just went, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need. And then they got rid of it and they said, we're replacing it with Fresco. And Fresco is this huge app that can do lots of things, but I still only use the 4 things. so so when graphic recorders, visual practitioners, anybody, when they ask me about digital, they're usually pretty disappointed that I'm not this big fancy user. And it's because when I started being a visual practitioner, I actually started with an iPad the same time I got markers. So I wasn't someone who transitioned. I, from the very beginning, was using an iPad. So I've used an iPad for over 14 years now doing this work. And so for me, it's about making it as simple as possible because my experience has been I am not going to capture as much on using an iPad than I will if I'm at the wall. And that's just me personally. Maybe other people have other tricks, but you have to manage a lot more, or it's just a different type of management. You've got to manage layers and you've got to manage. When I pick up a marker, I know what color and size this is. I literally just reached over and picked it up, take up off a cap and write. When I go to do digital, and I'll make this visual for you because otherwise it's just all concept. What's great about Fresco is that it's just showing you the screen. It's not showing you all my layers and the ink and all that stuff. Like you're not seeing any of my tools. So what I'm going to do, and I just realized I have to change my camera again. All right. So what I'm going to do physically now, what you're seeing is you're seeing all my layers. You're seeing all my tools. And this isn't a color because it's black, but you're seeing my tools down here. So if I just wanted to pick up a marker, I just pick it up and start writing. Here, I have to decide, do I want to be raster or vector? What color do I want? And am I looking at a color palette or am I building my own? I have to decide the size. I have to decide what my brush is doing. That's a lot of things to have to do all of a sudden. And you can set a lot of those ahead of time. However, I'm just saying, notice I didn't write a whole lot in all of these places. So you have to consider that when you're facilitating, what you're going to do is just capture some of these key things. Yep. And I highly recommend that no matter what app you're using, you use a grid. So if I turn this grid off and I zoom in, all you see is white space. You don't have a sense of how big things are or where you are in time and space. You put a grid in, and that's a little light. You can
there
put
we go.
Yep, you can put a grid in there. And now I know that when I'm writing, I know how big my letters are because I've kind of already memorized the size that I want to work in. And when I get back, I go, oh, that's a similar size.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah. So that's just sort of a little intro into that. What you're going to see here is that I'm connected in my computer and I'm going to stop sharing so I can show you what I'm using. So being able to connect into the computer allows me to, this is called a Elgato, and that's the brand. And this is an HD60S Plus. And so I'm using an HDMI cable and a converter to go from my iPad. And then I'm using, it looks like lightning to go into my computer. And this tells my computer that my iPad is another camera. And I can replace my iPad with my current camera, or I can do what I just did was share screen and say it's a second camera. But now I'm going to see if it works. See how I just replaced this with me? So you don't even see me now. Just replaced. Yeah.
So if you connect the iPad directly to the computer, what happens?
So I can either do that or I can share the screen. So why would you do one over the other? So if you want everyone to see what it is you're doing, then you're going to share screen as a second camera, like I just did, or you're going to replace your video like I just did, and you're going to spotlight yourself. Now, there's only 2 people in this meeting, so I can't spotlight myself. But you can also do it this way if the facilitator doesn't want to show the screen, like they don't want to see it the whole time. So you talked before about balancing between visuals and maybe your video. So the whole idea is that if one person is the scribe, but you're like, I don't want to show them all the time, then you would just highlight them when you want to show them. So you can see me. All right. So here I am. My computer is over there. My IPVO, that's my document camera. I have it pointed this way. And this is called a graphic Wally. Have you ever seen a graphic Wally before? Okay, so I'm going to zoom out just for a second. You're going to see my messy room. But this is on a stand and it can move left and right for like 50 meters. I don't know if it's 50 meters, but it's really long. So there's a lot you can do here. So what I do with my clients who want me to work big and also analog is that I would use a product called Statics. It's like a sticky note, but it's static electricity. They've also make staties, and I would write on them and then place them up here. And then I can move them around without them peeling off because it's just using static electricity. And so this was actually a template that I created for a client where they told me what their vision was. And I said, okay, what do we need to do? And we came up with different tasks, and it was at the end of the year. So it was Q4 and then Q1, Q2, the different quarters of the year. And we talked about what are some of the activities. So I would write those this way. And then what are some of the tasks that we would do in each one of these? But first, we would review the goal, we would review the vision, talk about our goals. Then we would go through all the activities. And then I would say, okay, what support do we need in order to be successful? And then what challenges are we going to have? And so this is a really big way to work. And you'd use really big markers, like this is called the fat one. So it's really a flat, big brush. And then we have the big one, which you might be familiar with. And then the number one markers in all of their, whether it's a wedge or a round or a brush nib. So those are the sizes you would use on here. And then of course, if we're going to do desktop, we could do the same thing. I've been doing it all week, just on my desktop, but that's much smaller using smaller markers. So why is this important? Well, this Wally, I could actually take it to an in-person meeting and I can clamp it to the side of a table and then use that with the group. And so you can use that. And then if they're working, this isn't huge, so it would be like in a conference room, I would say. Whereas if I were going really big in front of clients, I'd be on an easel and have really big pieces. But I know graphic recorders who take these to their client sites and then all of their charts are there all in one day. And so they have one big long piece of paper. And when I was working at an agency where we couldn't have iPads and our phones with us, so I had to walk around with a physical portfolio. I had a physical portfolio like this. This isn't the one, but I use this for display. This is called a portfolio by Neuland, and it has these holes up here that you can open up and put on a flip chart. Now, my flip chart is actually in my studio. I have a flip chart in my studio, but this is a big book that has pages that you can write on. And if you wanted to, and I don't have it here, but I would write on these. And then they have this, they have plastic, it's like a statics, but it's clear. And I can lay it over this and write right on it. And I'm never messing up my template, if that makes sense. So this particular book is great because I could carry, it's really big, it's heavy, but I could put it up somewhere and I can show people how we're going to work. So what do you think of that? So that's one way to go big in analog. Yay, thank you. So that's one way to go big in analog. And then of course also flip charts and things like that. And Neuland has a whole series of flip charts that look good on screen with you. So they have one that's square that can sit right next to you. That's just about, I'd say, takes up about half the space.
You say what's the name of the last thing you said? It was you said that they sell something and
The
that you can carry.
aesthetics, is
No,
it
no,
this
you
but
said like
clear?
they sell like a flip chart that you can carry
Ah,
with you.
it's a
What was
it's
that?
a yeah, it's square and you could take it in person, but it can also sit next to you in an online meeting because it's smaller. But
Mm,
I'd have to look it up, but they have a whole series of products that work really great analog. I think they call it analog tools in a digital world.
mm,
Yeah. So it's or for online sessions. Yeah. And I haven't used this in an online session, but I show it to show how big you can go and that you
mm-hmm,
can do it online, but then you can also take it with you and you've got, just a book rather than a whole bunch of rolls of paper that you can take with you
mm-hmm.
to a client site because it'll fit on any flip chart. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
I am
and it
like so excited.
and it also makes for a pretty cool background too, like you could just have it as your background. But yeah, all of these
Yeah.
things can be moved in front of your camera, or you can use another camera to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So
Oh,
what, so when you say that you work in analog, do you work large like this? Do you work big or bigger?
I mean, I my experience is like in facilitation, like community organizing. So like lots of flip charts, like lots of easel size,
Yeah.
like that. I have used big things in occasion, but like I did not know how to use them. I didn't know how to even like I have no so like I think I like kind of botched that a
That's okay.
bit, and I
Yeah.
don't and now I don't even know like I work mostly online. I would go to like I do like versions of the summit of the Appreciative Inquiry Summit, like usually 2 hours because and then we
Yeah.
do everything else online because people just don't want to take a couple of days.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And
um
we've gotten used to living and operating from home. So to actually
yeah,
get in a car or a plane or a train to go somewhere is a lot of effort.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So like I do most of the things that I do. I use either a flip chart or
Mhm.
I use like online tools.
Yeah. Great. Great. All right.
Mhm.
Any other questions about going big or even going back to digital? I'm looking at my notes here.
Um, I'm like I am thinking like I think like the iPad one was like something that I was really interested in.
Hmm.
And I was like really interested in like how to put it like next to me because like I
Yeah.
still like I think what I'm trying to figure out is like how do you build intimacy, especially
Yes.
like in like something like coaching, for example, where you don't need to like be fancy or anything. It's like about like how people are feeling, right? And that, but also like I work with a lot of designers and
Hmm.
people in the built environment, so like architects, planners, things like that, and like they're very visual people. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I would like to like really expand so that, but also like keep that really like that depth, that intimacy, that like. So I
Yeah.
am like, I want to play with that, and yeah.
Yeah. And that's an excellent question about how do you put the visual that you're drawing right next to you? Like, how does it show up in another space?
Hmm.
And I have no idea. It's like what I would do, especially if I was
Hmm.
in a one-to-one, is I would share my screen so that it takes over the screen. And then I would have them go to the upper right-hand corner in Zoom and go to view side by side gallery and push it over a little bit so that our faces are bigger and we can look at
Hmm.
each other, but we can also see the visual as I'm writing out. And I would have the template all set up to do that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then it's about learning the app. And so you have a bit of a learning curve there. How do you learn the app? And if you're doing this with visuals, I would highly recommend just taking a class from someone who uses that as a tool that is also a visual practitioner. And the
Mhm.
reason why I say that is that most people get Procreate because that's what they hear is the best.
Mhm.
And then years later, they go, oh, I kind of already know this app, so I'm using it. And a lot of them love it. And it's a really great
Mhm.
for professional illustrators, but it has its
Mhm.
limitations for visual practitioners. And so the reason why I would say if you want to learn coaching and how to do the visuals with that, Christina Merkley, she uses an app called Sketch. I think it's called Sketchbook Pro. But she's
Mhm.
excellent at it, and that's all she uses. She doesn't have an iPad,
Mhm.
and I have an iPad. So she's like, if you
Mhm.
have questions about iPads, ask me. But I just use Fresco. And there are people across the whole visual community that use different apps. It's not just those
Mhm.
two. Yeah. But if you can
Yeah.
learn from someone who's already a visual practitioner, then you're speaking sort of the same language. And what will
Mhm.
happen is if you don't, and you're just like, I'll just watch a bunch of videos, you're going to learn 80% of it to use 20% of it.
Mhm.
You have to learn so
Yeah.
much of it to get like this much, truly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love, like, I think that my next level of growth is like I really appreciated how much you said, like, there are some things that you just gotta, like, memorize, right? Like the icons.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to come up with the icons, like you can just learn them.
Right. Well, and it's a language, right? And
Yeah.
so you just need a few to start, just a few. And I think
Yeah.
I think Brandy Agerbeck and I got together one time and we were talking about how many icons we have. And I have some that I haven't used in a long time, so I have to really think about them when I go to
Mhm.
draw them. But I think she figured out she has like 20, she only has like somewhere around 20 that she uses all the time.
Mhm.
That's not very many to have to learn. But there are
Uh-huh.
people out there who are illustrators that don't, they may have a few, but they can just draw anything. Like they prefer to draw something that's truly coming out of them, or that their level of knowing how to draw a person isn't just a flat circle with a line under it, that
Mhm.
they're drawing people that are making expressions and really truly moving and doing those kinds of things. And so you don't have to be at that level. And that's something that people in our industry have really struggled with over the last couple of years is so many illustrators have come into the scene that these finished products look gorgeous, but they don't know anything about process. And we're process
Mhm.
people who are just trying to get it visual, right? And
Mhm.
so it takes time to build up that level of experience and library, truly. But yeah, once you
Yeah.
have some simple icons, you can do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
good,
absolutely.
good. All
Mhm.
right. Well, I had just a few other things. Let's go ahead and if you have any other questions, please let me know. But I had just a few other things, and I'm gonna go back to my other camera here. And I'm just afraid that my computer camera, my integrated cam isn't working for some reason. Probably because we did all that switching around. Okay. So avert your eyes for a second as I flip this around. I'm laughing because it's all of my settings are messed up. And this just is a good example of it takes time to set things up the way you want them. And to switch in the middle doesn't always work. Okay. So this is essentially our agenda that we've gone through. Talked a little bit about third-party collaboration tools. Now, do you do any hybrid?
Uh, not as much.
Okay.
I think that that is becoming now two meetings. Like
Hmm.
people are doing two separate meetings instead of like a hybrid one.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, if there's anything you want to share about that, I will soak it in.
I think what I'll do is I'll share. I have a handout where I talk about hybrids are actually planning 3 meetings: the in person,
Mhm.
the online, and then where they come together. So I'm happy to share that with you. And I think the reason why most people aren't hybrid yet is we not only do we not have the savvy But the technology we haven't adopted the technology that we need in order to do that correctly. All right. Well, then let's start to wrap this up. And one of my very favorite exercises to do at the end of a session, and you can manage this a couple of different ways, is called learn, do, thank. And the first thing is we're going to just take a few moments to reflect. Oh, I had it just right and I missed it. We're going to take a few moments just to reflect on what we learned this week and take a moment to either write in the chat or you can journal. What are some of your key takeaways? Like, what are the big things that you're thinking about? Like, okay, that's definitely where I want to explore more. And what's one thing that you learned that you will use right away? And it doesn't have to be today, it can be this week. And this is sometimes I have groups, I'll have a handout for them where they can do this and they can just write it out so they have it. And then once I give them time to do the learn, then I'll have them look at the do. What will you do differently as a result of what you learned today? And is it something new? Or is it something that you've had to relearn? Like, oh, yeah, I used to know that. Or is it something you have to unlearn? So maybe even a bad habit. And then I have them take a few minutes to free write about that. And this too, you could do like a 3-2-1, give them 3 minutes in each one of these areas and then distill it down. And then give them a couple of minutes to be thinking about what are they grateful for from having this experience and what did they gain? And so after I have them do this, if there's plenty of time and not a lot of people in the room, then I have them go through each one because again, there's this great parallel processing that's happening. And then if there are a lot of people and we don't have a lot of time, I have them choose just one and they have to share it in one breath because otherwise they'll tell this big long story. And when people are wrapping up, this could be sort of a closing circle exercise where it's not just a quick one-word checkout like we did the other day. What's one word that you're feeling? It's a little bit more than that. But this is also a great integration technique. How do they integrate all the things that they've learned by saying, what's the one thing that I'm going to use right away? Put that on your calendar. Make sure that you use it. Think about what project you're going to use it on. What will you do differently? Not the thing that you're going to do, but what are you going to do differently? And this is encouraging change and change management. Oops, still trying to get my face back. I don't think it's going to work. And then finally, what are you grateful for? And that's that appreciative inquiry, positive psychology that tells us this is what we're grateful for. And it ends it on that positive note. All right, I'm back. It worked. So I figured out it was Prezi. Prezi was giving me a hard time, that Prezi video. And it was because when I first turned it on, it asked if I wanted to update it. And I went, no. So even tech things can happen to tech people. That's not a problem. All right. So is there anything from the Learn, Do, Think that you would like to share?
Well, I like to always start with gratitude because I don't know, that's a very important value for me.
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful for the love that you pour into this creating this space. It's very palpable. I can feel it in my body. It's like there's so much care and thoughtfulness and like joy. Like I can see that this is so joyful for you to like put
Oh my
these
gosh,
things
I love it.
together and share that.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to like be in this space with you and learn so much and like share in the love.
Thank you.
I'm also really grateful that I gave myself a chance to come to this space. Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm not like a visual facilitator. Like I am like drawing was never my thing. Like, and I learned that it is so joyful for me to do things that are visual. Like yesterday, I was prepping for a meeting, and I'm like, I started with a word, and then I was like, oh, what icon would I draw? And then like ideas started to come about what I would say about that word, and I was like, oh, this is so much more fun than sitting in front of a Word document and like just making a list, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or something like that. So like um I've been interested in bringing more playfulness into my life, and like this visuals are really like a way for me to do that, and I didn't even know that this was
Yeah.
gonna be it. So
Yeah.
I
I
am
love
I am
that.
so excited. So I'm kind of like I'm learning that like that things need to be done one way, or that like the way that I thought I thrive in, which was more like making lists, which I can still do, but like
Yeah.
making them more playful like is so life giving to me. And yeah, and I'm like just again really excited about the tech, like the actual geeky tech part. Like that was also really fun. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but like
Yeah.
it's there. And I can't wait to play with the lettering. I Yes, I'm like that sounds really
Okay.
exciting too. So
Oh, good.
so that's all gratitude. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that because it helps me know that it's being received, right? That I know that I've actually made a connection and that this work is that way. And I want you to know that even after 14 years, when I go into a meeting and someone's doing visuals, I'm engaged. I'm
Mhm,
entranced. I am like, I'm surprised. And I love
mhm,
being surprised. That's something I really enjoy. And it's like,
mhm,
wow, look at that. Someone's doing that. And they're doing it in service for the group. And I think that's what you're picking up on is this is truly a service an act of service that we are creating this for people to have better understanding, engagement.
mhm,
Hopefully it's efficient. You in this session, you've seen more behind the scenes than you saw in the first 3 sessions because I wasn't telling you what I was doing. I was just switching the camera. I wasn't telling you that I was switching the camera and
mhm,
that doing all of that stuff. And so you can see it does take a lot of preparation to get it right, especially
mhm,
when it comes to online
mhm,
meetings because I sit in a lot of online meetings where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm going
mm.
to be able to make it. It's like it's so poorly done. I'm like, oh no. And I'm not perfect. I mean, I still mess up too.
Mhm,
And if people really don't know what they're doing, it's really obvious. And sometimes they're
mhm,
scared because they don't know what they're doing. And that's why I asked that first
mhm,
question, how do you feel right before? And I loved your answer about
mhm,
you're always nervous. It's like I always say that that's anticipation or that's the
mhm,
excitement that something great is about to happen. We are all coming
mhm,
together and something really incredible that's unexpected is going to come from that process. And that's what I think that's what I
mhm.
truly love about this work. Yeah.
I love that. I
So
really love that.
thank you for sharing that with me. And I have just a few
Mhm,
more slides that kind of wrap everything up, just a little bit of housekeeping here. I will have office hours tomorrow, starting at the same time, but I'll be online that entire time so you can come and go as you need. And hopefully others will show up. And then I'll also, of course, all these videos are going to be housed on the platform at Tech Host Academy, and you'll have access to those along with lots of resources. So if you feel like you missed something or it's all going to be there in the downloads and the recordings. And I'll also follow up with another date where we can all get together for another office hours if folks need them, because I think it's that um, once you've got all of this information, you're like, okay, how do I put this into context? How do I put this into play? How do I work with my clients? And so chances are something will come up and there'll be a hole and you'll be like, oh no, we got to fill that hole with a visual or we want to use visuals in this way. So we'll have another office hour, and then some upcoming things. Just wanted other offerings is that if you do want to take any other classes at letslettertogether.com, you can use the coupon code AI Visuals to get 15% off. And if you're interested in Tech Host Academy, where we really dive into a lot of these technical things, it's now a self service course, so you kind of learn at your own pace. And then from time to time, I have sandboxing sessions. It's $100 off that with that coupon code AI Visuals. And then, of course, I just want to stay in touch. So I'm on YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn are where I'm mostly the most active on social media. I'm not so much in Facebook and I'm not on X at all. And then one of my websites is viscoach.com. And if you go there, you can download a visual template that once I got certified with Christina Merkley, she gave us permission to give that particular template away. And I believe it's the life in focus template or something, but it's about all the different areas of our lives and measuring that. And so, yeah, so good. So thank you so much for joining.